Ready for the video?
Yeah.
Let's get
do
it. Awesome. Present practice. What is vibing? This is Vish and
Anna.
And today we'll be responding to Sadhguru's video on
Are astrological predictions important?
do you ever find yourself stressed, anxious, or nervous? Well, that used to be me all the time, and then I found meditation. And now I've got hundreds of people on the journeys, and I'll be soon coming out with a meditation product, so stay tuned for that. And today, I'm here with Anna.
Hi.
Want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Anna Casey from Anna Casey Lightwork. I am an international tarot reader, astrologer, and I also channel for light workers and for those on the twin flame journey.
Awesome. And you can check her stuff out, which will be down below. And where are you from, by the way? You got a cool accent.
I'm from Cornwall, proudly Cornish, 10th generation Cornish.
Okay.
And also that's my mother's side. And my dad was born and raised here in Austin. So I'm half black, half Caucasian.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
You mentioned you were a tarot reader as well?
I am.
Want to tell us more about your work?
Yeah, thanks. So I've been reading tarot and involved with spiritual practices since I was tiny. Cornwall is the land of myth, legend, King Arthur, pirates, stormy seas, wild women. So there were a lot of sort of witchy, occulty kind of influences back then, and I learned how to read tarot cards real young. But I kind of rebelled against it, went and worked in law and finance, all that sort of stuff. And then in the last 4 years, I've come back to it, reawakened those gifts, reawakened those lessons, and kind of put my own spin on it, and I've brought it home to myself.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Have you heard of Sadhguru before?
Yeah, I actually came across his videos earlier this year. I was particularly attracted to the stuff on masculine and feminine because I have a lot of clients with twin flame journey. So yeah, I have heard of him.
Very cool. And Sadhguru is a yogi, mystic, and visionary who's truly enlightening the world. And with that,
let's get into the video.
Now, anything that you want to do, you want to look at the planets and stars. You want to step out of your house, the planets should align themselves properly. Yes? Right time, wrong time. Are you looking at all those things? Rahu Kalam, Guna Kalam, whatever else. If you want to get married, you go and ask the third person, can I live happily with my wife? I think it's obscene. Whatever the kind of fool you marry, why can't you live well with her or with him? Whatever kind of idiot you're married to, once you've chosen to marry, why don't you live well with them? Or if they're showing some new kind of madness that you did not predict, why don't you leave them? Anyway, with all the predictions, horoscopes all matching well, still these two people nobody can match, isn't it? Any astrologer will match horoscopes for people, but can they match these two people? To what extent you're being responsible for the other, only to that extent your marriage works. Is it so? How responsibly you handle the other person, only to that extent it is working. Is that so? No. Personal development I'm talking. I understand. I'm talking about developing your life.
Like for example, you say that on a certain period of moon, like Amavasya or Purnima, the energy is about
Yes, I'll come to that. Now, see, every shape, every form has a certain impact upon you. Now this vessel is sitting next to me, it is emanating its own kind of vibrations. Every object is doing it. But now it's up to me whether I allow this vessel to influence me or I influence this vessel. That's left to me. Which way should it be? Which way should it be? This vessel should influence my life or I should influence its existence? Human nature should do that, isn't it? Now, all these stars and planets, they're inanimate things, aren't they? Rock and stone, isn't it? Rock and mud, isn't it so? Inanimate. Now, should inanimate things rule the destiny of your life, or human nature should rule the destiny of inanimate things? Which way should it be? Human nature should, if you have realized the potential of what it means to be this. Otherwise, inanimate things will rule you. Now Paurnami comes, full moon day. Do you know, during full moon days and new moon days, people who are little mentally disturbed go hyper on those days? Are you aware of this? Do you all go crazy on new moon days? Huh? Do you? No. Compared to them, you are a little more stable. Because of this, wherever the moon goes, you can carry on your normal process of life. But for them it is not like that. Because they're in a certain level of instability, if the moon comes up, they are going crazy. The moon disappears, they're going crazy. So, you are a little more stable, suddenly moon has no impact upon you. It is pulling up the whole ocean, but no impact upon you if you're a little stable. Similarly, if you stabilize yourself further, nothing has an impact upon you, but you impact everything. Human nature should decide the course and the destiny of all inanimate things, not the other way around, isn't it? If you allow yourself to be influenced, anything and everything is willing to influence you. But that's not the way you should exist. You must take the course of your destiny into your hands, and you should go through what is needed to empower yourself that way, rather than waiting for the stars and planets to fall into position. Many of the stars that you're looking at up in the sky, they don't even exist, do you know? Many of them have disappeared long ago. Because they're so far away, the light is still coming, slowly. Yes, light is coming very slowly. That is why for so long you're seeing. Actually, the stars have disappeared long ago, but you are making your calculations based on those stars. It is just that every object has an influence. Definitely, planetary positions have an influence. But whether you allow yourself to be influenced or not, that is in your hands. If you have realized your human nature, you should not allow all these planets to decide your life, isn't it? You must decide the quality of your life.
So what do you think, Anna?
I have a lot to say about all that.
Okay.
I agree with him that the planets and the position of them do influence us here on Earth.
Yes.
I mean, I grew up in a place where the tide was really at the centre of our world in Cornwall, and so we paid a lot of attention to what the moon was doing. And if it can move the tide, and we're 78% water,
yes,
of course the moon's position is going to affect us.
Yes.
And also, similarly, the planets in the solar system are the main ones we read as astrologers.
Yes.
And he also talked about stars and the light. Well, we obviously read whether, for instance, Saturn is in Aquarius, meaning where it's positioned relating to Aquarius, Aquarius being a system. So the way that the light is positioned in the sky is just a marker for us in figuring out where the planets are positioned.
Okay.
So basically we're looking at the closest planets to us and how that affects the energy here on Earth. So I agree with him when he says that it affects us.
Yes.
The part I didn't agree with was where he was saying it's up to us whether it influences us. Of course, yes, it is up to us. However, this idea that you're unstable if you allow it to influence yourself, I would actually love to sit down with him and talk to him about his internalized patriarchy. And the reason is this idea that steadiness and this idea that stability is all and important and that's it. For me, that is in itself a denial of the feminine. Because the feminine, I mean, we're in Cancer season right now. The feminine is just without any masculinity in it. It can be a tidal wave of emotion. It can be extremely unstable. It can be psychic. It can be all sorts of things. But there is a plus side to that. There is information. There is intuition. There is connection. There is change. Things are shaken up.
Okay.
So this idea that stability and steadiness is the desired state is, to me, a very masculine and patriarchal, toxic masculine, patriarchal concept.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And also, it seemed like you were very transparent with how you felt. And that's very important. I always like to encourage that on this channel. And it is interesting. I mean, I guess it seems like you mostly agree with him, but towards the end, it was just that last bit of stability that you weren't too in line with. Is that right?
Yeah. He also talked about how planets are inanimate, how they're basically just stone. Well, we know that all matter is vibrating. We know every time our heart beats, it creates electricity and electrical charge by itself.
Yes.
So if we are all interconnected, if we are all one consciousness, nothing is inanimate. Everything is vibration. So even that premise I found to be pretty three-dimensional, and I was surprised to hear it from him.
Okay. Well, again, thank you for sharing that as well. And I think it's interesting because I've seen, honestly, I would say hundreds of his videos.
Yeah.
I've also gone initiated by him into this meditation practice, and as I've realized and learned, he actually does have a very different, let's call it a camera face, as well as what he really represents and what he's really about. Because a lot of the things you're actually saying, even just now, for instance, with how we're all energy, and he's talked about that.
Okay.
But it's interesting because, as he says, actually, these videos, he tends to sometimes use certain analogies and certain points to get across certain points, but not necessarily always to be taken literally, I think.
Got it.
Is what I've seen at least. If you see one video, it can definitely be taken that way.
Yeah.
But again, I've seen so many videos. In fact, he was talking about, for instance, and this is really interesting actually, with the term of being a lunatic, right?
Yeah.
So apparently the term lunatic, and again, this is what he doesn't directly say it, but it's what I've learned, comes from the term lunar, which is the moon.
Yeah.
And going back to what he was saying with regards to people that are, let's say, more emotionally, or not even emotionally, but mentally, I think the key was mentally unstable. So mentally and emotional are different, right?
Well, in the tarot, they are different, completely different energies, right? So the mental, and also in your chakra system.
Yes, correct.
So yeah, I agree.
Exactly. So I think you might have been more or less referring to the mental, not the emotional, because the emotional, as you and I have discussed before, seems to be more feminine dimension oriented.
Yeah, it is, and also it depends on how you want to phrase it and how you want to frame it.
Sure.
So what I often speak about this with clients is that emotions are just hormones. Hormones are our body.
Yes.
Our body is what tells us what we're feeling, and so therefore actually spirituality comes from intuition, which comes from our gut, which is our emotions.
Wow, literally. As you
it's
mentioned.
So this idea that emotion is feminine and that feminine is somehow unscientific, I also have a problem with, because we have scientific basis in our bodies for where our emotions come from.
100%. He actually talks about a very similar thing, which is the idea that it's all about and yoga talks about this too, right? The yogic sciences. It's all about getting in union with the universe, essentially.
Lovely.
And when you get in union with it, there's actually a sense of natural intelligence that is within you. Like, as he says, I mean, even just your heart beating, for instance, or your breath, or all these beautiful things, there's an intelligence that's keeping you alive, literally. And there's an intelligence that's keeping this, as he says, and this is the analogy part of where he talks about this from, just to get his point across, we're literally spinning on a piece of rock, right? And in the middle of nowhere, and it's floating. Yeah. But even for that to stay stable is due to the natural intelligence. And so I think that is really, really important. And before I forget, connecting back to the lunar point, I think he was really trying to go after the whole mentally unstable type of people. And what he says actually is that, and I've seen this other video recently, is that people that tend to be mentally unstable, essentially during those times of the full moon, that is, it gets enhanced, and so they tend to act a bit more lunatic than usual. But at the same time, people tend to interpret that as, oh, it makes people go crazy. But as he says, it's not about making people go crazy, but it's enhancing whatever is already within you. So if you're very stable, it will enhance the stability. If you're very erratic, it'll enhance that. So it's really just that, and I guess it is interesting, to to view it almost as a misnomer that
It is.
lunatic is just crazy.
It is. It's because the idea of lunacy to me really just means something that doesn't fit into society.
Yes.
Instability meaning something that's not like normal, the same as everyone else, right? And that's why I went straight to, I wonder about where his internalized patriarchy is, you know? I wonder about what society he wants those lunatics to fit into. Because in some societies, people who might be seen as lunatics can be seen as messengers, as psychics, as healers, as shamans. So it's really just about perspective.
Got you. So I guess just to clarify this point, so are you suggesting that that stability is feminine? Instability is feminine? Is that what you were?
No, I'm
at,
suggesting that instability is relative.
Okay.
So to you and I in Western society, something that might be unstable to us might be completely normal in a different. I'll give you another example. So an example of this is where I'm from in Cornwall, we have the NHS, we have free healthcare, and we have a strong welfare system. So we also attract a lot of artists. I happen to know a lot of artists who have no money and they are making art, and some of them are revered in our society as bards or as leaders of our rituals locally in our villages, right? But here in America, if you have no money and you can't get access to healthcare, you're by the side of the highway begging. And that's a really perfect example of something that's unstable in one society being revered and respected in another.
Interesting. That is very interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. And also keeping it real. I think it's really important to open up the discussion and platform. I guess before we continue any further, going back to the astrological predictions and if they're true or not, is there anything you want to add to that aspect?
Yeah. So as a reader, when I'm working with clients, my job is to let them know what the collective energy that we're being presented with is. And it's also my job to understand what the various collectives within our whole collective is doing. So, as an example, I spend time being tapped into the divine feminine. What are the feminines processing? Right now, they're processing a lot of infidelity, jealousy, abandonment issues. That's just going through their bodies randomly. And I'm hearing it from clients all over. The masculine's going through an authenticity thing. They're really pushing away anything that's really not authentic to them right now. So that's a sweeping generalization, and it is because of where the planets and the stars are, or at least it's in alignment with them. Then you have each of the 12 zodiac signs. And some people don't know this, and we'll leave a link below, but astrology actually began in ancient Egypt and was adopted by the Greeks. So it's been around for a really long time, in a very similar form to how it is now. And those 12 collectives are really just a group of people born around the same kind of time of year, with the same kind of energy, moving through a journey around the same kind of cycles. It's as simple as that.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that wealth of information. And I think I learned so much about astrology just from you in this. Sweet. With that being said, I want to appreciate you all for taking the time to watch this reaction. And don't forget to check Anna out, who will be in the links down below. And with that, make your great day, take it joyfully, and stay conscious. Awesome job.
Thanks.
You did great.
Yeah, cheers.
Sweet.